Hey everyone, welcome to the Star Wars Lads channel. If you're new here, there's usually another person alongside with me, my friend Liam, but he's currently out of town right now, so he'll be unable to cover directly all of our stuff in the first two episodes of the Bad Batch Season 2 premiere. But rest assured, his video will be inserted here with his review of what he saw, what he liked, and you'll also see him again later on this week on Friday when we drop our predictions and speculation as well. Before we get any further, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We drop 3 videos a week whenever there is a Star Wars show out. So our Mondays will still be our special topic videos between Liam and myself. Our Wednesdays are reviews of the episodes that come out for whatever Star Wars show is going on. And in this case, that's the Bad Batch Season 2. And on Fridays, we drop our predictions and speculation video for the next episode that's due to come out the following week. If you're an audio podcast platform listener, rest assured we got you covered there as well. You can find us on Anchor, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, as well as many other podcast platforms out there. If you enjoy the content that we put out here, or if you're new and you want to be able to keep more up to date with us at all times, make sure to follow us on our socials. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and even Reddit now. And as always, please do make sure to respond to our community polls. We always love to interact with you guys, and it really does help us understand what our fans are looking for from us and what we can always improve on. Okay, now that we got all that out of the way, let's get into our reviews of episode 1 and episode 2 of the season 2 premiere of The Bad Batch, Spoils of War and Ruins of War. I'll pass it over to Liam right now for what his thoughts were on this episode.
Hello there, everybody. These are my quick thoughts on the Bad Batch episodes 1 and 2 of season 2, the premiere that came out tonight. I thought these episodes were really strong. They're fun in terms of like the Sid type mission episodes. These are some of the better ones we've seen. It's cool to see Sereno from a lot of different angles. It's cool to see the effects of both the Separatists and the Republic, ultimately the Empire, on Sereno, and how Count Dooku's power structure and the way he set up his government has played out on the people. I think that was a nice touch that we added. It was nice to get more Tech and Echo. Those were characters that were definitely sidelined for season 1 for Wrecker's comedic effect, for Omega's kind of heart and soul with the Hunter, and then Crosshair. We get a lot more Tech and Echo, especially with Omega, which adds a nice bit of humanity to them, who were kind of just our guys who did specialty things in the last season. They didn't really have character of their own. We're getting to see a bit more of that character, and Echo's getting a bit more back to the roots of where we initially saw him when he was in Rookies, and then all the way when he was an ARC Trooper and all of that. So it's nice to get back there. Another thing I really enjoyed about this episode was towards the end when we see the clones fighting each other, and then Admiral Rampart killing the clone captain. I thought was a nice touch to how we are transitioning from the Republic now to the Empire, and how in the Empire it's all about the struggle for power within the government rather than a strict look at the rules, a way of climbing the ranks through the system. Now you are physically trying to hurt other people. We see it through Andor, we see it in Rebels a lot too. We're getting these Imperials who are hell-bent on climbing the ladder no matter what it takes. And I like that from Rampart. Ultimately, I'm sure that's going to backfire because he's not in anything else, so he's probably going to die. But I like seeing that here, and we can see how much the clones are even more disposable than they were last season. With the destruction of Tapoka City, ultimately, these clones are not long for the world, and I think by the end of the season, we're probably going to see a big shift in either the clones all being killed by the Empire, or ultimately they all end up joining with the Bad Batch, and hopefully that's the case because we don't want them all to die. So I'm looking forward to next episode, though. It should be a good one. Thank you so much for watching. I'm pass it back to Sanak.
Thanks, Liam. All right, now let's get into my thoughts. As a whole, these 2 episodes definitely are not the same level as the first 3 episodes of the season 1 premiere of The Bad Batch, but I think that was more necessary with how a lot of people were really unsure if The Bad Batch deserved to even be the next big animated show, especially the first purely streaming show from the Star Wars animation department on Disney Plus. And they had to really justify a lot of things. So we got to see cool things like Order 66. We got to see young Caleb Doom. We got to see stuff on Camino, the mystery of Omega. So it made sense for why those 3 episodes that we got were so explosive, so fun, so dynamic. And these 2 episodes, if you're looking for that same level of energy and bombasticness, it's not there. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think especially after Andor, I really appreciated taking time to live with our characters a little bit, let them grow, be more of what they need to be for whatever time period or in whatever has come. And that happened quite frequently in the Andor series because it did span over a year. I'm not really sure how long since season 1 has passed, but it's a good enough time to see, like, the characters all wear different armor. Omega's got longer hair, she's getting a lot more well-educated on a lot of the Imperial technology and whatnot, and it made this first episode like a fun return to this crew, and I think that was actually pretty important because we haven't seen them for well over a year. The last time any of you guys saw us talk about the Bad Batch, we had like 50 or 60 subscribers, and we were really struggling to get this channel going. And without you guys really enjoying what we put out here for the Bad Batch, this channel would not have existed. So, yeah, I mean, again, just want to thank you guys there. But again, let's get back to Spoils of War. Yeah, it is really an episode for us just to catch up, but there are still some really cool things. The very first opening scene was something that we saw at Celebration, and we saw pretty heavily featured in the trailers. So it wasn't too surprising that that was our very first scene. But there's some interesting things already. Tech definitely has a little bit more of a development here as a character. He still has his like quippy lines. He's still the smart guy in the group, and his humor is very much based on all of that. But he also has a lot more of a stronger connection with Omega. He's taking on up this tutor role. I thought that was pretty cool. But the character that really got the development here, especially in this first episode, was Echo, because we've seen Hunter as the leader of the group. What he says, everyone kind of follows through on. They add input, sure, whatever, but he ultimately makes the big decision, the big calls. But once they all come back together, Echo's really pushing like a little bit more of like the conscious of what the Bad Batch is. And I really appreciated that because Echo just got zero service in the first season. He didn't even really talk about Fies or anything with Rex, which was a big disappointment for me, especially because of how long we've been following this character, hoping that he was still alive, having some rumors here and there. But immediately, just with this first episode alone, he's now the conscious of the group. He is pushing the Bad Batch to really grapple with a lot of the things that happened in the first season, especially the Camino stuff that happened at the very end. And I think that's pretty cool because the first season is so much about the Bad Batch being the special force and then just being these ragtag bounty hunters who use their skills quite well, but it's not their lifestyle. They have to adapt to it. Whereas here, they're already pretty well versed in it. They're not going to change too much. They can get away with a lot of things because of their genetic mutations, because of their camaraderie and whatnot. But at some point, with everything they experience, especially with losing Crosshair, with all their interactions, with the fact that Crosshair hasn't really ratted them out, which is a pretty big revelation in these first 2 episodes. What are you going to do after everything that's happened? You got to really deal with the consequences and then possibly do something about it. That's what they were bred to do and create change. And I'm really liking that Echo is, I guess, a little bit more suited to be the reg voice, the soldier voice. So I really did appreciate that. The rest of the episode is really not that big. We go to Ord Mantell, see Sid, and she lets them know of a mission on Count Dooku's homeworld of Sereno, which was it seems to be provided by one of her acquaintances that they meet, Fee. I'm assuming that because she's willing to let them meet her and she's willing to give information to this woman, that this is a character that's going to definitely reappear a little bit more often throughout the rest of the season. I think we do see her in the trailer, so looking forward to what her character is. Really like, we don't really know too much just from what we got here. But yeah, they go to Sereno because the war chest of Count Dooku is being taken away by the Imperials. So yeah, I guess the last big thing I can say about this episode is like, yeah, we get to see some of the cool action and all that, but we also get to see like how the Empire is destroying separatist worlds, and it's shocking that like the separatist pseudo capital of their leader, Count Dooku, was just obliterated by turbo lasers and everything, which they walk upon, and it's crazy to see. And I'm liking these little details that they're filling in about the immediate things that the Empire just used the old Republic Navy and soldiers for. It's depressing, but it's really cool to see all that stuff play out. So yeah, that episode is really just to get us back into the groove of things with these people. But episode two, Ruins of War, that's the really good stuff because yeah, we do continue on with a lot of the things that we've seen, like the payoffs from the first episode, but we do get to see some really interesting things happen. For one, we get to see a little bit more of the Sereno Castle that was Dooku's homeworld, the iconography that was really fleshed out in the Clone Wars. And while Wrecker and Hunter are kind of stranded there fighting their way out, it's also just really strange to see this place that we know is evil and foreboding just now be a ruin in its own way. Like the only thing that's not obliterated in this whole cityscape, which I thought was very interesting. I wonder if there are like certain things that the Empire wants to keep up as a way of saying, like, okay, we can destroy your worlds, but we'll also let some symbols still remain as we convert it to our own needs. I'm very curious if they do something with Count Dooku's castle there. The bigger things that happened here was that Tech and Echo and Omega survive their cargo mishap and land on a ledge, but they manage to get out. But they have all the war chests that they could still loot, but they run into a Sereno, a Serenian. I don't know what the word is here, but his name is Romar, and he's basically a survivor. He is our perspective of a separatist because he had to be, because that was what his homeworld fell under. But someone who also speaks about the past before all this war and all this conflict. And he has a really cool scene where Tech just assumes, seeing this big memory bank, that it's like a separatist memory bank, but he's like, no, there's history and art before all that stuff too. And he tries to impart that same message to Omega when he shows her like a little toy to look at. And she's become so mission focused and oriented throughout these first two episodes with her space dads that she looks at the object and she's like, oh, this is treasure. These are jewels. And he's like, it's just a fun toy. That's honestly all it is. And it takes a little while for her for the rest of the episode. She does the Omega thing where she kind of runs off and gets herself in trouble, but she does it for the right thing. She's trying to really stick to the mission plan that they had discussed, plus all the little extra details of the conversation that Echo had in the previous episode with Hunter. But it was nice to see this character to, again, fleshed out a little bit more of the immediate stuff that happened, especially with the Separatists after the Empire took over, because they don't just fold in. They're the ones who are made an example. They are the ones who started the war and whatnot. So I'm really liking like this bit of a survivor perspective who remembers before this whole war began and can kind of impart some knowledge and wisdom to supposedly a grown man and a young girl as well. So I thought that was very cool. I mean, a lot of this isn't more of an action-packed episode. We get to see Wrecker become a full-on tank, which I kind of loved seeing him use old separatist tanks to take on Captain Wilco and his crew who are chasing them through the ruined cityscape. And that's kind of how they make their way back to their ship and then get there in time to save Omega from her mistake. And Echo also has a scene where he imparts some, trust and care for her as well. Always nice to see. But the richest part of this episode, it has to be the end when Wilco has failed, but he submitted his report and Rampart returns. And Rampart was, for us, the most interesting part of season one. And here he's like, yeah, there's some discrepancies in your report, Wilco. There's no way that you clone group, clone batch 99. They were destroyed on the bombardment on Camino. And he's like, nope, I verified them with my own eyes. And Rampart's like, okay, well, I'll just have to change the report. And the man's like, I refuse to falsify that. Like, there's this strange thing where maybe it almost seems like he's fought against his program just a little bit, even though he is still a loyal Imperial. And then by the time he turns around, because he's like, I guess in shock that Rampart would make him do something so heinous, which is a war crime and all, he turns around and Rampart's just ready to shoot him. And he's killed. You see the body fall off the cliff next to the castle, and that's really where our episode ends. And it's a bit shocking, but it does build off a lot of the stuff of like the darker things that we saw, especially in the last two episodes of season one, but also in the stuff that I've seen in the Ryla arc, where the Empire is manipulating, changing the story, and disposing of these clone troopers and anyone who goes against their initiative. And I'm very interested to see how Rampart works with Tarkin, or if we even see Tarkin in the season, because Tarkin usually doesn't want people to withhold things from him. He'll make an example of it. Rampart here is kind of playing more of the role of like, let's sweep it under the rug and make it look pretty so that my status is elevated, that I have more of a voice in the room. And that's interesting. And it's disturbing in a lot of ways too, but I'm really enjoying just how much our characters ended up being fleshed out. We still had the action, and then we ended with some very dark and grave things. It doesn't really describe the scope of what this next season will be like, but I'm excited now because I we got to get back with our group in the first episode, and now we got to see some pretty horrifying things that really make you think. And yeah, I guess that's where I'll end my review there. All right. Well, thanks again for watching this review of the first two episodes of The Bad Batch Season 2, Spoils of War and Ruins of War. Again, make sure to like and subscribe to this video. We really do appreciate this. If you're an audio podcast listener, you can find this review up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Anchor, and whatever podcast platform of your choice. You'll be most likely able to find it. Again, follow us on our socials. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Reddit, and more. And if you haven't already, make sure to stick around for our Friday prediction and speculation of episode 3 of The Bad Batch's second season. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.